Hello, my name is Mary Fisher. I'm the Vice President of Energy Production and Nuclear Decommissioning. I'm here today to talk to you about our plans for the future, Power with Purpose. Today I'd like to talk to you about our future and where we are going at OPPD. I'd like to set the stage a bit, looking back over our journey that has led us to where we are today, how and what guides our decisions, talking about our next steps, what now and what to expect in the future. So I want to set the stage, where we've been and how far we've come. OPPD has been on a journey. You've been on this journey with us. Since 2010 through 2019, we have been adding renewables to our system. We have added nearly 1,000 megawatts of wind from 2010 to 2019. We have also made lots of decisions along the way that you've been a party to. We joined the Southwest Power Pool Energy Market in 2014. We also met our renewable goal of 10% 6 years early. We established the power panel, and we made a commitment at North Omaha Station to retire units 1, 2, and 3 and to convert 4 and 5 to natural gas by the end of 2023. As we continue in our journey, our board of directors gave us strategic directives. There are 15 of them that guide our pathway. We also made some tough decisions. We decided to shut down Fort Calhoun in 2016. It was a difficult decision, but it was the right decision at the right time. We announced that we would have a no general rate increase, and we also put into service the Midwest Transmission Line. Midwest Transmission Line provides a 345 kV transmission line from Nebraska City Station down to Kansas City. It was an important aspect at the time and continues to be today. Continuing on to our journey into 2019, we assisted the University of Nebraska Medical Center in putting 500 kilowatts of solar behind their meter so that they become more independent in their energy needs. We established the Elkhorn River Valley Transmission Project. We announced community solar, and our community solar sold out in 49 days with just our residential customers. Our commercial customers are still waiting for their turn. And we have a waiting list of residential customers to join us as we move forward. Our Shoals Wind project is due to come on November of 2019, and we're looking forward to adding that wind to our portfolio, taking us up to 972 megawatts of wind in total. And last but certainly not least, we are working on our Sarpy County transmission line. This is the project that will service all of the incoming economic development on Highway 50. We're requesting that our board of directors allow us to install the largest utility-scale solar installation in the region and back that up with natural gas. We're also asking to modernize our low-emitting natural gas assets and to replace North Omaha Units 1, 2, and 3 in the retirements to fulfill our commitment made earlier in 2014. We will, as necessary, add voltage support devices. What that enables us to do is to fulfill our commitments at North Omaha, Units 1, 2, and 3, and by the end of 2023, we'll convert Units 4 and 5 to natural gas. When we isolate the changes at North Omaha 1 through 5 and add modernized natural gas technologies, as well as gas backup for the solar installation, our carbon emissions are expected to be reduced by 80 to 90% over our current North Omaha emissions. In total, over this journey, from 2010 through 2024, we estimate that we will reduce our carbon emissions by 30%. In parallel, we plan to continue with our Pathways to Decarbonization study. This study is looking how to decarbonize our fleet into the future. The study should be done in 2021. What guides our decisions? It's our mission statement: provide affordable, reliable, and environmentally sensitive energy services to our customers. Our strategic directives that have been directed to us from our board, 15 of those that tell us what the board believes you, our customer owners, are expecting of us. And then we also have legal and regulatory obligations, both through the state of Nebraska as well as through the federal government. I want to talk a little bit about what guides our decisions in terms of our regulatory obligations. The first is in the state of Nebraska. As a public power entity in the state of Nebraska, we are legally bound to serve all customers. We have an obligation to serve in the 13-county service territory in which we operate today. We also have federal obligations. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission provides obligations for us to meet grid reliability and also regulates wholesale markets. Their enforcement arm is NERC, or the North American Electric Reliability Corporation. They, through the Midwest Reliability Organization and through the Southwest Power Pool and the market in which we sell electricity, help to provide the guidelines that we need from a federal perspective. A little bit about the electric power grid. On the left, you see the transmission system. Large transmission lines provide the necessary electricity that we need to supply to cities. It goes through a substation, and from that substation, it goes to our distribution network, which comes into your homes and your businesses. A little bit about the electrical terms that I need to define for you before we go forward. Demand and capacity. As you look at this parking lot, demand is the amount of electricity or energy similar to the cars in the parking lot that OPPD customers use at any point in time. Capacity is the capability of the system to serve the demand, so the size of the parking lot needs to meet the requirements. As you can see here, this represents about a 50% capacity. Peak demand is the greatest amount of electricity that OPPD's customers use at any one time. Generally, peak demand will occur on hot summer days, typically later in the evening. The capacity here in the parking lot, as you can show, is 100% full. Things we do on the electric system to make sure that we can meet our capacity requirements, we put in a reserve margin. And that reserve margin is additional capacity that may be used as part of the system if for some reason it becomes unstable or it becomes overloaded. Now that we know the electric terms that we're going to use, let me talk a little bit about how this comes together for us. On a hot summer day, our energy peak, as you can see in this diagram, is a little bit below our accredited capacity requirement. That's because by Southwest Power Pool market regulations, we must have a 12% reserve margin. So we have to meet our highest energy peak demand plus 12%. And that creates for us what's called accredited capacity. Accredited capacity is also regulated by the Southwest Power Pool. They determine how much each one of our generating assets can contribute to the capacity requirement. By regulations, things like wind, because they're intermittent resources, get a smaller capacity than our natural gas or our coal-fired assets. As we move on to our obligation to serve our customers, here you can see a diagram of what the transmission system looks like across the United States. It is a complex system, but most importantly, as you can see from this diagram, we're all interconnected, and that interconnection knows no boundaries. It doesn't matter whether it's in our service territory, whether it's in our state, we are interconnected, and what happens within this grid can affect all of us. So the difference between transmission and distribution that we talk about. Transmission is high voltage electricity that goes long distances and serves large cities. Typically, you can think about that. The transmission system is like the interstate and the highways. It knows no bounds. It crosses state boundaries. The distribution system is more local. It's what comes down into the local streets. The distribution system also provides the power that comes into your homes and businesses. So why now? What's the next step? We have been working to solve for a problem that we have, and that is that we have a changing generation landscape. We have growing needs of our community, and we need to maintain the reliability and the resiliency of the system. The framework for which we solve this problem goes back to our mission: affordable, reliable, and environmentally sensitive energy, our strategic directives from our board of directors, and our legal and regulatory obligations that I just spoke about. So how does this affect us? We have a changing bulk system As you can see in this diagram, the gray and the red dots represent nuclear and coal-fired power plants that have been retired from 2008 to 2018. What's been brought on to replace that, as you can see in this diagram, the green dots across the middle of the country where we live is wind. The yellow dots that you see on the coasts are solar, and the red dots is gas generation. As you can see, it's been significantly changing over the last 10 years. What does that mean for us? NERC, the North American Electric Reliability Cooperation, has deemed that the resource changing mix is indeed a top-tier reliability issue across the nation. They made these assessments. The rapid rate at which the fuel cost, subsidies, and federal and state and provincial policies are affecting the resource mix are creating a new paradigm. Since the bulk power system is interconnected, these efforts cannot be isolated to stay within political boundaries. As I said before, it crossed states, it crossed into our service territory and other service territories. Ancillary services, such as essential reliability services on the bulk power system, that could be eroded by the retirement of many large rotating synchronous central station generating units. They went on to say in a different study that these changes in the generation resource mix and technologies are altering the operational characteristics of the grid and will challenge the system planners and operators to maintain reliability of the system. The task force found that the most important essential reliability services for reliability largely focus on the topics of managing frequency, net demand ramping, voltage, and dispatchability. This is a national problem, and it's being discussed at a national level. Let's bring it a little closer to home. What does that mean for OPPD? We also have an evolving power system. Our generation landscape has changed as well. Over the last 10 years, we have seen the retirement of the Mid-American George Neal plants 1 and 2. We have made the difficult decision to shut down our Fort Calhoun station. We also have made the commitment at North Omaha to retire units 1, 2, and 3 and to convert 4 and 5 from coal to natural gas by the end of 2023. And the Mid-American plants, Walter Scott 1 and 2, have also been shut down. What's been brought on to replace this power? Renewables, wind generation. It has been a great evolution for us in our changing landscape. But as you can see here, it's further out away from our service territory. So 1,000 megawatts of increased renewables and reduced base load of about 1,300 megawatts. As I said, what happens across the river affects our system equally as we shut down Fort Calhoun affected the Mid-American systems. It knows no boundaries. So why is resiliency important and why is it necessary? Resiliency in our system is the ability of our system to take a shock. If something hits it, we want to make sure that it bounces back and that it can ride through the storms. And we've had a number of storms over the past few years. The flooding earlier this year, freezing weather that has snapped our power lines and our trees, as well as a tornado that happened in 2017 that took out significant portions of our transmission system. That has resulted in multi-day outages of that system that we needed to carry through. And the resiliency helps us to do that. That indeed is what keeps us serving you each and every day. So what did we do? We looked at what were the optimal resiliency attributes on our system and what were the solutions that could afford us that resiliency going forward. If we look at this slide, you see the declining of our resiliency and a resiliency threshold. That threshold is the thresholds required by our NERC and FERC. If we take no action, we will indeed go below that line. We do not want to do that. We want to maintain the resiliency for you, our customer owners, and for everybody in the communities. So we will be asking our board to take action to add accredited capacity and to ensure the resiliency going forward. So why now? We continue to grow our communities. We continue to have changes in our landscape across our generation portfolio, and we indeed see a gap out into the future of accredited capacity. This is the capacity that we need to maintain that resiliency. What should you expect from us? We have been solving for the generation landscape changes, the needs of our community, as well as the reliability and the resiliency of our system. Using our mission, our directives, and our legal and regulatory obligations. We looked at different objectives and technologies. We looked at things like combustion turbines, reciprocating engines, photovoltaic solar, battery storage, combined cycles, not to mention a plethora of different assets at North Omaha Station, as well as transmission solutions, including synchronous condensers, static VAR compensators as examples. We have also looked at new demand-side resources. These resources, why we feel these are extremely important for us in the community, are not sufficient to meet the gap in the needs that we have into the future. The objective of the analysis and these technologies is to balance affordability, reliability, resiliency, and environmental sensitivity. We've done this analysis and we've considered many supply, demand, and transmission resources. The technologies that are in gray were screened out due to significant cost premiums, comparative ineffectiveness, and failing to meet technical or resiliency requirements. I want to speak a little bit to battery storage. We know that there's a lot of other utilities that are adding battery storage onto their systems as a solution. For us, this is not a technical solution, especially when we look at multi-day resiliency events like the floods and the tornadoes. It is the inability of a battery to produce generation over multiple days during resiliency events that makes it not a technical solution for us. Also, at the Southwest Power Pool, the policy is still uncertain around batteries. We don't know what the accreditation capacity rules are, and we also don't know how they value the essential reliability services that I talked about earlier. It gives us some uncertainty into the future if we were to put batteries on our system as to how they would be used in the system going forward. We plan to go out with a request for information for energy storage technology in late 19 and early 2020 so we can gain more proficiency on battery storage. We have also applied for a grant to the Nebraska Environmental Trust. That was submitted earlier this year, and we are hoping that they will be a partner in an energy storage project for us in the near future. How did we do this modeling? Well, we took all of those options that I talked about earlier, those objectives and those technologies. We multiplied them all together and we came up with 70 million different combinations that could be a solution. And then we started to pare that down. And we removed logical constraints, things like you couldn't have North Omaha 1, 2, and 3 both on gas and retired at the same time. Those type of constraints help us to minimize the number of portfolios or the number of solutions that we needed to look at going forward. As we moved on to evaluate site constraints, those were items such as North Omaha 1 through 5 could not be on gas simultaneously because we do not have the gas supply to support that. We changed our modeling approach when we got to 130,000 portfolios to a concept called efficient frontier. As you can see in the chart on the left, resiliency versus cost. In the middle is a non-optimal portfolio. Choosing that dot, moving up, I can choose a dot for the same cost at higher resiliency. Again, going back down to the middle, if I move to the left, I can move over to a dot that is lower cost and the same resiliency. Moving to the chart on the right, emissions versus resiliency, I can use the same concept, the non-optimal portfolio in the center. Moving to the right, I can get the same emissions but higher resiliency. Moving down from the dot in the center, I can get the same resiliency but lower emissions. It is in this manner that we establish the efficient frontier for our portfolios. So in terms of a modeling overview, this is how the efficient frontier for resiliency and cost looked as we went through this screening process. This blue cluster represents 130,000 different portfolios that passed through our earlier screenings. Again, we have the non-optimal portfolios in the center. To the left, lower cost, same resiliency. Upward, same cost, higher resiliency. Between those, we have what we call the efficient frontier. It is the efficient frontier portfolios that we're most interested in. And so, as we went forward, we established our current state of resiliency is the black line you see coming across. That gives us the minimum of where we want to be on our resiliency score. And any portfolios that are above that line and to the left represent our high potential portfolios, those that are optimal when comparing resiliency to cost. We also did the same for emissions versus resiliency. Again, the black line represents our current state resiliency score, and down and to the right are the higher potential portfolios, those that represent a high resiliency score and lower emissions. As we identified our high potential portfolios, we wanted to remind you of the benefits that we see by the portfolio that we've chosen. We look at our older resources, North Omaha 1, 2, 3 on natural gas and 4 and 5 on coal, but we're proposing to move to North Omaha 1, 2, and 3 retirements and 4 and 5 refueled to natural gas, including solar and modernized and backup natural gas as a solution, and the benefit that we see from that in terms of our carbon dioxide emissions. Again, we expect a 90% reduction with those changes at North Omaha. So what is the solution that we're working toward? The problem, the changing landscape of generation, meeting the needs of our community, maintaining reliability and resiliency. The framework, our mission, the strategic directives, and legal and regulatory obligations. The solution, large utility scale solar with natural gas backup, modernized gas assets to replace North Omaha 1, 2, and 3 retirements, and converting North Omaha 4 and 5 to natural gas. Voltage support devices as necessary, and what we would really like to do is to request that we move forward with requests for proposal. Once we get those results in, we will finalize our modeling conclusions. So what's next? Between October 9th and November 8th, we have communicated this plan with our employees. We are going to continue to inform and educate our stakeholders to ensure understanding. We will receive public comment via OPPD listens and educational presentations. On November 14th, we intend to request from the Board of Directors to negotiate and award contracts. Over the fall of 2019 and the winter of 2020, we will release a request for proposal and a request for information for energy storage. Spring and summer of 2020, the RFP process will continue and we'll perform analysis on the bids that we receive. We will provide periodic updates with the Board of Directors throughout that time. From 2020 through 2023, we intend to construct the facilities. The future is bright. We will continue in parallel with the Pathways to Decarbonization study. Our project kickoff has occurred. We are planning our stakeholder engagement. We will continue with community conversations. We will perform the analysis and the study will be complete in 2021. For you, our customers, and our community, we want to engage you as a trusted energy partner to help us lead the way we power the future together. I'd like to thank you today for taking the time to learn about our new projects and where we're headed in the future, our Power with Purpose. Please provide your comments through November 8th at oppdlistens.com.